And that's why they're trying to put Newt Gingrich around Dick Cheney.
I think that's one reason. The First Lady today attacked her opponent, Rick Lazio, saying he sounds like a moderate, but he was really Newt Gingrich's deputy whip. You know, any attachment that they can make. And the Democrats ran against Herbert Hoover for 20 years, and they're going to try to run against Newt Gingrich for another 20.
It's amazing how quickly things change, though.
Well, it is, and it's interesting that Dick Cheney's voting record from 1985 isn't of importance, but Al Gore's from 1975 is. But that, having said that, let me just say, Newt Gingrich will not be on the platform. Tom DeLay, the House Republican whip, will not be on the platform. Pat Robertson will not be on the platform. They've kept everybody. They've muted all the controversial figures. They're not getting anywhere near a microphone in this all.
Does that bother you, Paul?
No, those figures, no. I'll tell you what bothers me is that Henry Hyde is not going to be on the platform.
Oh, that would have brought up the Clinton impeachment.
Jim Rogan, the impeachment managers, they didn't have to get up and talk about impeachment at all. All they had to do...
Today, though.
I'm talking a prime time thing. All they had to do was walk up there, and this place would have gone crazy. And I think that would have been something that just...
And why would they decide, no, they don't want that image, right?
They don't want
to be the impeachment party?
Their view of Washington is that we're trying to transcend the fights here. We're not trying to pick sides in them. And they want to come in over to the top of everybody, and they don't want to be on either side.
George W. Bush, this is George W. Bush's convention. This is not a Republican convention. This is not to rehabilitate and redeem the Republican Congress, which may be irredeemable.
Okay, we have to go. Thank you. See you later. And in non-convention news, passengers on a British Airways Concorde had a scare on Sunday. Their jet lost speed and began to reek of fuel on a flight from London to New York. It made an emergency landing in Canada and was grounded for safety checks. On Saturday, a Concorde flying from New York to London had an engine problem. It landed in London without a problem. The incidents came just days after an Air France Concorde crashed outside Paris. Investigators today focused on the possibility that the jet had a major fuel leak. We have a report from Lawrence McGinty of Independent Television News.
British Airways' morning Concorde flight to New York from Heathrow attracted more than the usual attention. Unlike Air France, BA hasn't grounded its Concorde fleet, despite last Tuesday's crash and the catalogue of minor glitches since. Investigators sifting through the wreckage are now saying that the portside engines were not the source of the dramatic fire seen by eyewitnesses. The fire, which started even before the Air France Concorde took off, originated in the fuel tanks to the left of the two port engine pods. But it's still not clear what ruptured the tanks, spilling fuel that fed the spectacular fire. Publicly, investigators have not ruled out an engine failure, hurling parts through the tanks. But attention seems to be focusing on the possibility of a burst tyre and debris from the blowout piercing the fuel tanks. French and British investigators are today meeting engineers from the airlines and Rolls-Royce, the engine makers. The technical cause of the disaster might then be clearer.
And the death toll from the crash was lowered today by 1 to 113. French officials blamed a mix-up in registering the bodies. Israeli Prime Minister Barak survived a no-confidence vote in Parliament today. It was the second time in a month that he faced such a vote. Opponents accused him of making too many concessions to Palestinians at the failed Camp David summit. Barak lost his majority in Parliament when some of his coalition partners quit the government just before the summit. Venezuelans celebrated in the streets today after President Hugo Chavez won re-election. Partial results showed he took nearly 60% of the vote on Sunday. He's governed on a program of social revolution aimed at dismantling the country's old political order, but wealthy Venezuelans charge he's hurt the country's economy. We'll be back on most PBS stations at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with our complete coverage of the opening night of the Republican National Convention, and we'll return at our regular news hour time tomorrow, as well as being with you throughout the convention.
The tech index gains almost 104 points, while the Dow closes up 10.